Hello, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins. Welcome to Financial Lovemaking, where we talk about love, life, money, and everything in between. I am here with my buddy partner and co-host, the Ebony Magazine Entertainment Director, Miss S. Tia Brown. How you doing today, Tia?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing better than Ray Rice.
Oh, oh, what a nice way to start.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
let the listeners and viewers kind of know what's going on with Ray Rice for those who may not have heard.
Okay, okay. Well, if you're climbing out from under that rock you've been under for about 6 weeks, Ray Rice was you have to use past tense, I guess. He was a superstar for the Baltimore Ravens. He was their lead running back, one of the best running backs in the NFL,
Mhm.
and he got into a domestic violence situation with his then fiancee Janay Rice, who's now his wife, and it was ugly. The video recently emerged where in an elevator, she and he were going back and forth. Now, people did say that she did spit in his face, but that didn't justify what he did next, which was literally punch her and knock her out cold, which was a huge problem. And then he kind of drags her like a rag doll out of the elevator
Right,
and
right.
flops her onto the floor, which there's no excuse for that. I mean, there's nothing you can say that will justify that kind of behavior. Not even, I wouldn't say other than, but the only explanation that would almost make sense to me is if both of them were just drunk. If he's like, oh, I was so drunk that I didn't even think about what I was doing, and that to me is a reminder about the dangers of drugs and alcohol. I warn people all the time. You never believe how many emails we've gotten at Your Black World from people that did stupid things when they were drunk and it got reported in the media, and then a couple days later or a week later they're asking everybody to take the stories down.
Oh,
And so I think alcohol and drugs are just bad, no matter what. So there's no excuse for what Ray did. At this point, it's a matter of I guess the family deciding which direction they should go.
right. So accountability wise, Ray it was at first suspended from the team, the Ravens, and then he's suspended indefinitely from the NFL. He had a major contract. There's been a lot of public um, outrage, and his wife has chosen to stand by his side publicly. They did get married after the initial incident. She's been with him at press appearances, and she's even taken to, social media to say, this is our family. I love my husband. I feel like, my best friend, I'm losing my best friend. And she just wants people to kind of mind their business. And people have come out saying, she's an abuse victim, she's not in her right mind, and other people have said, kind of leave them alone, mind their business. He's a great NFL player. But Boyce, you also had a strong opinion on this, and I want you to tell the listeners kind of what your stance has been.
Well, on financialjuneteenth.com, I did write an open letter to Janae, and I wrote it. It's so funny to you. I was warned, not to write anything about this because it's just such a touchy political topic. People politicize personal situations and make people or their experiences into sort of these iconic symbols of whatever they believe in. So they end up, what I believe is projecting their political views onto a personal situation that they know nothing about. And my spirit told me to write this letter because, I have daughters a little bit younger than Janae. I have a sister I love, and the women in my family. I just thought about, well, what would I say to one of my daughters if they were in this situation? Clearly, I'd be very upset with what Ray did. Because you can't match his force with her force. NFL players are literally they're almost 100% muscle, and
Absolutely.
this idea that he was justified in any way in hitting her is out of the question and crazy. But my thought at the same time is, what would I say to my daughter if she went through that and came to me and said, you know what, Dad, I know it was terrible, but we're working through this. I love my daughter. I want my daughter to have her father. We're going to work through this. He hasn't done it. He hasn't done
Janae
it.
and for those who don't know, Janae and Ray have a child together. They have
Yes, they have a daughter, and I said, I would probably tell her, look, let's just be real. Let's break down. And this is what I said to Janae in the letter. I said, look, let's talk about the negative side of this risk that you're taking. Just last week, I had a very good friend whose cousin was murdered by her husband in a murder suicide, and her husband showed signs of being an abusive person. So I said, you have to understand, a lot of people that are dismissing what you're saying, because she's really defending her husband and really getting upset about the critics. I said, look, people have seen this before. They've seen that abuse victim who is like, leave me and my family alone, but yet the victim is always calling you in the middle of the night whenever their man flips out and punches her in the face again. So I said, there's a good chance he's going to do this again. There's a good chance, I believe he's probably done it before in private and you just haven't told anybody. I said, so you're taking a huge risk here. I said, however, on the other side of that, there are millions of women who stood by their man, when he made a mistake when he was young, in his 20s, and said, I love my man, I love my family, I love my child. My child has a right to love her parent or her father, and I want her father here. So we're going to work on this. And I said, maybe you're in that category. If you are in that category, you better make sure, number one, that he gets counseling, plenty of it, so he can understand that violence is never the solution to any domestic issue, any issue, period, really. I said, number two, you need counseling, because if you did spit in his face, we know that that's not appropriate. That's extracting the fact that we know that what he did was entirely inappropriate. The idea here is that you can't be politically correct when you're dealing with a personal family issue. And what I mean by that is, the political correct response is, she did nothing wrong, you're blaming the victim, she has no accountability in any of this, she had nothing to do with what happened to her. No, she spit in his face and he punched her. That's what happened. Now, was that the right response? We know it wasn't. But should you have spit in his face? No, you shouldn't. That's not how you deal with your husband. So my thought was, if you're going to keep the family together, you're going to take this huge risk, make sure you do it right. Make sure you're doing it in a way where you're going to be safe. Make sure that you're not one of those tragic stories that we're telling 2 or 3 years from now when he's hauled off and killed you. And the final point I made on that is, and this relates to financial lovemaking, is I said, you know what, I totally understand this idea that you're communicating, that people who are claiming to help you are ruining your family. That household is not going to be any less tense now that she has a husband who has had a big part of his identity stripped away from him. He defines himself as a football player, so now he's going to be this demoralized shadow of himself, sitting around the house, getting fat, not having enough money. That doesn't make a relationship better. So I think that Janay was perfectly within her rights to speak up. I think that her voice matters in this, and I think anybody who says, well, we're defending her by ignoring her, is out of their mind.
Absolutely. I hear what you're saying. I have a few thoughts on this. I think all abuse victims, all situations like this, the person will do a cost-benefit analysis, right? And it's not just because he's Ray Rice. People look at the security of being in a relationship and being in this family versus the occasional, crazy scenario, and say, you know what? Life outside of this situation isn't going to be any better, or we can work through this. But the bottom line is that it is a very dangerous situation. Unfortunately, Ray could have killed his now wife when he punched her, had he hit her in the wrong place, or her head hit the wrong place when she fell. So this had the ability to be not just a dramatic situation, but a traumatic situation leading to the death of his child's mother. So I totally understand that people feel like this is an outrageous situation, and I understand also why Janay feels like you should mind your business so we can work through this. But we also need to make it very clear, she cannot save Ray Rice. She can't make him get counseling. She can't make them change the relationship. He has to see that there's something wrong in the way that he handles stress, the way that he handles conflict, the way that he engages with women. And he has to make a decision that he wants to change that. And I'm not relinquishing her of accountability in terms of the way that she handles stress, fights, turmoil. However, we understand that when we have force meeting force, his force, like you said earlier, is always going to outweigh a woman's, just because not only is he a man, but he's a man in prime athletic condition. My last point on this is I think accountability is the biggest thing that, we see having an impact here, right? Public accountability. When you see these videos, when you have people talking about it, when you have people talking about domestic violence statistics and how traumatic this situation can be, I think it really creates more of an environment for social change. Boyce, you look at it as, the court of public opinion, but I look at it as a way really to create a discussion and a forum for people to understand this is not unacceptable behavior. Ray Rice didn't do this in private. He did this in a hotel where he knows as a public figure that there are cameras everywhere, that there are people watching. So it is important for us to have these discussions and to know whether it happens privately or publicly that it's outrageous behavior and unacceptable. Only Janay and Ray will decide what the future of their relationship holds and has. But in order for there to be a change, it has to be on both parties' sides. We cannot say that Janay needs to help him or she needs to save herself only. If you're going to make anything work, both of them have to decide that this is unacceptable behavior and both be willing to do the work. I do not encourage any woman, any man, to stay in a situation where there's such extreme violence. And because we're not privy to what happened behind the scenes, we don't know if they took any time apart and had counseling and therapy and a learning better skills. But for me, that is the first step that needs to be done.
I agree with you 100%. And my only potential explanation for why Ray would do something like this, knowing, as you mentioned, with the cameras around and everything else, is I believe that he was drunk. I believe that, and we know when people get drunk or on drugs or whatever, they do stupid things. I also believe that he's 27, which he is, and 27 is not. You're not going to do the same things at 27.
You know what?
I'm not. It's not.
I don't want to give him that excuse.
No. It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. It's an explanation. An explanation is not the same as an excuse.
You think those are the circumstances that happen?
Right. I think that that's why he did this stupid thing that we know that he shouldn't have done. That he knows he shouldn't have done. That's what I'm saying. I don't believe that he would have done this if he'd been sober. But then I'm speculating on the whole drinking thing. Maybe he wasn't drinking, but it's Atlantic City, middle of the night. There's a good chance.
In drinking, even if you're at an 8, 9, 10, punching your spouse, your partner in the face when you have such a physical advantage, to me, it is outrageous, despicable behavior.
It is crazy. It is crazy. But here, I'll give you another example that switches the genders. I don't think Solange would have attacked Jay-Z the way she did if she hadn't been drinking. So I think, because I think that she would have been aware of the fact that there were cameras around. Their public figures. This isn't appropriate. But
so I speculate on the level of intoxication for Solange in that way either. And I cannot say that drinking would have made that situation any better or worse, because some people do not have control of their, faculties when they are very upset.
Yeah,
that's blackout moments.
That's
and it's unacceptable.
Right. That's another issue too, and that's the question I would have is, we know that there was a psychological imbalance, some sort of chemical imbalance in his head that led him to think that it makes sense to punch this tiny woman that I supposedly love in the heat of anger. Right. We know something happened that was either temporary or permanent, and that's the question: was this a temporary imbalance or a permanent imbalance? Let's be clear here. Ray Rice is an NFL athlete. One of the big untold secrets about the NFL that people won't talk about is that there are a lot of athletes who suffer significant brain damage as a result of crashing into other 300-pound men at full speed all day long. Your brain is not supposed to take that much trauma, and you're finding a lot of athletes, once they die, they open up their brains and realize that they have the brains of old men. They have Alzheimer's. Some of them, or it's developing into Alzheimer's because your brain is not supposed to get rattled around inside your skull like that. And so,
this is what I hear you saying. He fights a lot. He had head trauma, so he hit his woman.
No, I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying, and remember, there's a difference in an excuse and an explanation. I'm not excusing what he did, and what I'm really saying is, if I'm talking to Janay, I'm saying, look, here are some facts that you may want to consider, and facts. And by facts, I mean not things that actually happened, but factual things that could have occurred that could have led to this ridiculous situation that you and Ray are in, that Ray caused, right, by responding the way he did. So there's no question about the blame here. The point though is that, if you're really trying to figure out, you can get to the root of what might have happened here. I think all those possibilities do line up, and Dave Durison for the Chicago Bears recently committed suicide and after a long career in the NFL, and he asked his family, when I die, please make sure that my brain gets donated to science so they can find out what's wrong with me, because he just had all these weird emotions going through his head and he didn't know where they were coming from. Same thing. I talked to another former NFL player who was very good, and he said, most of my friends have some type of brain damage. He said, I can tell you what's wrong with me now, and I'll get angry and I can't control it, or or I can't sleep, or I'll get depressed for no reason. I don't know why. Or I saw one of my friends and he saw me and he said hello. And then 5 minutes later, I saw him again, and he said, "Hey, how you been? Where you been?" He said, "I just talked to this guy 5 minutes earlier." So a lot of NFL athletes, unfortunately, are losing their minds because your brain's not supposed to get hit like that. So I'm not saying that this is what happened with Ray. I'm really talking about this more so as a slight tangent here. It's a potential explanation, not an excuse. What Ray did was wrong, and if I'm Janay, I'm going to analyze all of this so I can decide, okay, should I dig in and try to make this work, or do I get the hell out of Dodge? But either way, I mean, she chose to marry the guy for the goods and bads and ups and downs of being married to an NFL athlete. I would marry a professional athlete just based on the norms and the averages. If I'm a woman, I don't marry a professional athlete. There's too many other women around, too many other cultural temptations, too many other stressors. But, for some reason, there are a lot of women who want to do that. I guess because of the money and the fame and all that stuff. And I say, if you're going to do it, make sure you go in it with full information. That's my point here with Janay.
Okay.
Not really taking sides.
Okay, so this is my parting comment. There are a lot of women in this world who are Janay Rice. Absolutely, and we don't get to see what's going on in their homes, but we know that crazy things are happening. At the end of the day, you cannot save a spouse who has violent outbursts. They have to decide to save themselves. So the only way things will change is if they are committed to change and get the help and the tools to live in a healthy, happy relationship. And those are my parting words. Do not assume that you can save someone. You can't. No amount of love you have can save a person from themselves. They have to deal with whatever's going on, whether it's a mental issue, whether it's just not having the proper coping skills, whatever it may be. You cannot change that person's behavior. They have to change it.
All right. Great parting words. Great talking to you again, Tia.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.